And that's the thing about
That's how I see
like a lot
Lawrence
of things.
Titan's as.
Like the more I watch, I mean, the more I grow older, I guess, the more I'm like more and more accepting towards like all of this fictional stuff. But here's the thing: life is big. I know that a lot of people have a lot of problems with Ironwood's turn heel, but there are so many people who are like Ironwood. You know what I'm saying? Like there are so many people that have been born in this world and died, and I'm pretty sure that one or two were people who were exactly like Ironwood. Like it's totally possible that people like him existed. That people like him who were super nice and super responsible during peaceful times. Then they encounter an enemy that they can't beat, and they go fuck this shit, and they betray every single person they love, and only just
it's with Ironwood. He's the best example of fear and paranoia getting the best of him.
Yeah,
because he was already paranoid with Volume 3 with the attack on the CCT and his fleet and his robots.
Yeah.
And then add in the fact that Volume 7, Atlas is like, martial law, and Mantle was like being very rebellious and just rims attacks constantly, as well as Robin and her happy huntresses fucking around with his stuff.
Yeah.
At the same time, he found out that, besides, did you know that Salem was actually immortal? Oh, I'm sorry. Like, like all this stuff being thrown at him at once, like, essentially broke him, and then he became who he is now. At the same time, it's like, but it feels rushed, right? It's like 1 minute he's like...
I really don't like the word, like, broke him, because it kind of is implying that Ironwood became a psychopath, which is not the truth. It's just that Ironwood himself is like a super methodical general, and he has a very like unhealthy obsession with Atlas. So long as Atlas is safe, like he can like guarantee you 100%.
Someone could correct me on this, but I think wasn't like they showed like Ironwood's semblance is like it's like a passive semblance similar to Crow's, where like he gets very meticulous. Wasn't that they say that was his semblance or some shit?
But I don't think the semblance really affected a whole lot of things. It didn't do anything about his fear, and it surely didn't do anything about his ego.
Better ego wins.
Yeah. And I just has like obsession over like Atlas. Like whenever like he like says, oh, if Salem attacks, then I have to move my fleet to Mantle, and if that's the case, then Atlas is doomed, and he like has a breakdown because of that. And I was looking at the scene and I was thinking, what's wrong with Atlas being a little bit in danger? What's wrong with that? And Ironwood is having none of that. He just is overly like obsessed with protecting Atlas at all costs, at 100% capacity. That's why like as soon as the problem rises, he just wants to like fling Atlas into the air. And if people kind of disagree with him, like saying that he's overreacting, saying that we need to be patient or something, like, oh, Mantle matters too, and like I would, between choosing Atlas and Mantle, like it's not even a question of choosing. He's always going to choose Atlas over everything. Yeah, he has an obsession with that.
It's the insanity of like, oh, I'm gonna kill 100 people to save 1,000 people, like mentality, right?
I mean,
that entire concept is a slippery slope concept. It's a slippery slope concept.
It's sort of that, but at the same time, it's also not entirely true, because he has like issues with Atlas. Because here's the thing: I don't even think, if that were the case, why didn't he just let everyone on Mantle evacuate to Atlas and then fly? Because he was super impatient. That's the thing about like in Volume 7. As soon as Salem appeared, he was like, oh, I'm going to make Atlas fly into the sky. He could have waited, he could have stalled and fight Salem, make it so that a lot of Mantle people evacuate to Atlas and then fly into the sky. I think even Team RWBY would have been fine with that. But truth of the matter is, he doesn't care. He knows that if he puts too many people on Atlas, then there will be a lot of food and water and shortages. So he just went, fuck him, Mantle. Because there's the entire possibility
I
that
think at
Mantle
that
has
point,
more people than Atlas. We don't know the
I
exact
think at
number.
that point, I think Ironwood like became insane on the aspect of it's every man for himself, and he was just trying to live for himself. Like he gave up on that. I don't think it's no longer protecting the people of Mantle anymore.
Yeah.
It became I need to save myself.
No, here's the thing. Like his his idea of self is Atlas. Because truth of the matter is, Ironwood is very easy to sacrifice himself. Like when he was fighting Watts, he was sacrificing his arm. He was sacrificing his life. You can't like deny the fact that Ironwood is a really good fighter and he's really good at sacrificing his body. But he does have an obsession over Atlas. That's the thing.
Ultra nationalism, I guess.
Yeah, it's nationalism. Like, if it like, like certain American presidents can like sacrifice themselves. They can like sacrifice their lives, but they would bomb the entire world if it means America is safe. For example, it's kind of like that. There are certain Republicans who think like that.
No, I see what you mean on that aspect. Yeah, like they have to, like I said, I'm American, but like then again, I have different like East Asian background, so I understand where it's coming from. But I think the idea for him, he's like, oh, I need to sacrifice everything to what I believe is just, and my justice, I live. So it's like he was basically getting his own justification. Like, for example, like I think him shooting Oscar was like basically proving the fact that he is too far gone. Like he is no longer a reasonable human being anymore.
Yeah.
And I think like the whole fight with like Winter, like if you watch like the fight, with Winter and Ironwood, you could show like the brutality of Ironwood coming out. Like, cause you see how like Winter was like actually like scared, like when she was parrying his attacks.
Also, did you did you watch my video regarding Ironwood? I'm sorry, I'm kind of like gushing, but at the same showing off, but at the same time, I think it's one of my best videos. Honestly, I'm kind of proud of that.
Well, like I said, I only found your channel like a few days ago, so it's like I barely really watch RWBY content in general.
Yeah.
I'll watch random skits and random sketches. That's whatever. But like, I also do watch some of the criticisms of some like the RWBY criticisms, and I'm like, there are some points they have right, but at the same time, like bro, like I say this from the beginning, this show is scuffed from the beginning, so it's scuffed and janked from the beginning, but that's the charm of it. It's an indie project that got a lot bigger than most people thought it would.
Yeah.
So like I give that props.
But I don't know. I think I really just have a lot of appreciation for RWBY, because here's the thing. Like, I don't really like comparing other shows to like other stuff, but there are very few shows like just like RWBY. There are very few shows that have the same charm as RWBY does, because I mean, I guess there are quite a few if you like really look down deep into it, because there are certain political shows that handle like exact Atlas Mantle situations like that, but those types of shows also kind of like go far too deep into the political stuff and forgets about the fun stuff. And I think one thing I really like about RWBY is that it kind of tries to combine all the fun stuff, goofy stuff with the real life political stuff, and also like inner journey type of stuff. So there's a lot of variety, and the writers definitely seem to be very jack of all trades type of people, and that's really good, because there are certain people who are like really good at doing political stuff but just doesn't want to do anything else. There are a lot of people who do a lot of really fun goofy stuff, but they just don't want to touch political stuff from they don't even want to touch it even from a mile away with a stick pole.
Yeah, there are some things in terms of politics in shows you just don't want to get into, unless like if your show is overtly political to begin with, you could talk about it. But if your show isn't, then it's not something you want to bring up to, because like I said, one of the biggest things that would divide a fandom base or divide like just a show in general is if you talk politics or talk like really big social issues.
But yeah, that's the thing. And I think that's because of that. I think people that did kind of got divided because of volume 7 and 8, but I mean that's good. It's in a way I really don't like how like a lot of these fandom and critics are so unself-aware. They kind of like trash you about, like, sure, if you disagree with Team RWBY's political decisions, that's one thing, but at the same time you have to admit that the show is well written and it's creating all this discussion because, you know, it's very interesting discussion, and the show is creating very interesting discussion and interesting situations, to the point that the entire fandom is like having so many like split opinion. You know,
the fandom right now, the way I see it is that like the fandom believes that their version of the show or their version of their thought process is the correct one. Anyone who thinks differently is like whack or like incorrect.
I think people just lack that awareness. Because here's the thing, I like a few years ago, like after Volume 7 finished airing, before Volume 8 aired, that we had a bunch of like 10 or so people had like a Discord debate regarding RWBY, and like on the exact server that you and I are on, and we talked about whether Ironwood was right or Team RWBY was right. And I think like 5 people agreed that Team RWBY was right, and 5 people went Ironwood was right. It kind of just shows that how interesting the situation of the story is. It's not something to be complaining about. It just kind of shows that how good of a job they did in regarding setting up a very interesting dilemma. Because I think if Ironwood did something that's really dumb, and every 100%, like 10 people, all 10 people agreed that Team RWBY was right, that would be a very boring story. Because one thing I really enjoyed, like Volume 7 and 8, is that despite Ironwood like being scared and losing all his shit, he's still Ironwood. He's still kind of badass, and what he did for the most part made sense. And even certain people like agreed. There were even certain crazy fan Ironwood stans who think that Ironwood trying to blow up Mantle was the right thing to do. I'm not one of those people, but there are certainly people who exist that nah, bro, bombing Mantle is good, bro. Like war crimes all the way.
The way I see it with Ironwood as a character on its own is, you're gonna have fun titling this episode. You have no idea what to call it at this point. This is just like it started as a 9, now we're talking more about Ironwood. It's up to you how you want to call this show.
I'm thinking of editing this video, because you can just make all the parts of us talking about Volume 9 into one video, and then us talking.
Yeah, and then you can talk about the whole Ironwood debacle into other. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But basically, what I have to say in terms of Ironwood is like his character. Like I said, it's the ends justify the means, and you know if you're a hero, you live long enough, you see yourself becoming a villain type trope, right?
Yeah.
So I think the reason why some of the fan base was divided with Ironwood and what he did was justified is depending solely on other people's experience. If you are a younger person with much more naivety and much more innocence of the world, you would think that no, what Ironwood is doing is wrong.
Yeah.
It's unmoral. But if you are someone who's been in their in their 20s and 30s, or if they're a veteran of war or they've seen conflict, they understand where Ironwood is coming from, where in the end I need to sacrifice something to save the others. Like, it's the morality of we're using our experience to justify what this character is doing. Yeah. And it's like imprint. We're imprinting ourselves onto these characters and see how these characters would react if it was in our shoes. And I think that's the issue. What people need to need to get away from is that these characters are their own characters. Yeah. You gotta let the show rock and let the show express itself why these characters justify the things they do. You should not justify it for them. They should justify it based on their actions. And then, from my point of view, Ironwood just went batshit insane from paranoid and betrayal, that he just started doing things that, in his mind, he thinks is justified. Yeah. But for other people, especially the innocence and naivety of Team RWBY and friends, they're like, no, you shouldn't be doing this at all. And then that's the issue that people need to come across. And that's why I feel like why certain topics like these gets very sensitive.
Yes. But I really don't like shying away from sensitive topics, because if this topic is sensitive, it means it's important. Nobody talks about whether nobody's sensitive over whether do you like the color blue or do you like the color red. Like, nobody is having existential crisis and fighting over one another over topics like that because it's not important. And if you're fighting over something like that, then you're kind of stupid. But yeah, like all these political topics do get sensitive and do get very heated is because it's important. And when a lot of stakes are involved, people kind of goes a little bit crazy, crankers, Yeah.
It gets personal. That's the thing. In like topics like these, it will always devolve back to becoming something personal, and then it gets to a point where the debate and the conversation ends up becoming like some form of personal attack towards another individual.
Yeah,
and that's what a lot of people have issues with. Like, can you keep a civil conversation or a debate or a talking point civil to a point where you're not insulting the other person? And that's a lot of issues that a lot of people don't have. And when you start spitballing conversations, you end up saying something that ends up insulting somebody else, and before you know it, both sides shut down, and you guys are just talking to each other as like two walls looking at each other. Like nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, that's the thing. People need to be open, and I think
it happens a lot often than you think, and it's not just like fandom. It's everything.
It's literally happening in the show. Like Ironwood just went, "Oh, my way is the highway." Like he doesn't want to listen to. Yang said that, oh, we helped Robin, and Robin is a trustworthy ally, and we should listen to her. And Ironwood just doesn't want to have that because he doesn't really appreciate someone who's trying to be on his level. He wants subordinates. He wants people who he can control. People who he can command. As soon as other people starts doing their own thing and trying to justify their own thing, he just doesn't want to accept it. Especially if those people did something he really doesn't like.
Let's be real here. All this shit could have been fucking resolved. Fucking Glinda talked to Ironwood in 7 and 8.
Yeah, possibly. Possibly.
No, I'm just fucking messing people.
But but it's so sad because Ironwood throughout the entire volume 7 kept saying that, oh, if Osborn was here, I really wanted to listen to his opinions, and he never got to talk with Osborn. But at the same time, Oscar probably told Ironwood something that's even better than Osborn's opinion. Because, like I said, Oscar, there was one scene in Volume 7 where Ironwood was going, oh, what Osborn would have said, and Ironwood is moaning over that. And then Oscar said that, oh, if Osborn was here, he probably would have told you to stick to your truth and hide your truth and do things in the shadows. But we know that that's clearly wrong, and Oscar kind of encourages Ironwood to tell the truth, and it's now time to let the truth be in the light. And Ironwood listens to that, and because of that, he announces the existence of Salem to everyone. And unfortunately, Ironwood just stopped trusting Oscar as soon as fear gets the better of him when Salem arrives and he shots.
Yeah, when Salem, I think the actual downward of Ironwood was when after he fought Watts, and then he was wounded on his arm, and then he saw Salem for the first time.
Yeah,
that's when he was like, okay, everything I did is for naught, and he became a similarity to Raven.
Yeah,
Raven
basically
ran away when he saw Salem and everything, and he realized the truth. And Ironwood did the exact same thing, but he's just taking everything with him. Raven just ran because she just ran.
Yeah,
and I think, and that's the issue. It's the idea, listen, these well-trained huntsmen and even headmasters took the fear got the better of them. And remember, fear is a theme in the show as well, right? The fear of death, the fear of the enemies, the fear of not knowing, right? Mm-hmm. The fear of not seeing your loved ones again. That's also a big theme in this entire show as well. So, and this is a theme that's it's a hidden theme, right? It's not something that a lot of people and that's the thing. A critical analyzation of shows, it comes up in thematic essays when you're talking about the show and its entire season wrapped up. You could say one of the biggest themes is knowing your fear and overcoming your fear.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It's a lot to take in. Like I said, and this is just me coming in, noticing after 2 months in. So it's what the fuck do I know? I'm just a schmuck on the internet.
Yeah, but it's it's a very universal theme. You can find themes about fear on almost every show, in a way, like a little bit. Like maybe not in the same way as Team Ruby, Ruby does, not as deep or not as gimmick as in the same gimmick as that, but it's a universal theme because every human experiences it, and every human probably deep down knows that being controlled by fear is really messing everyone up on a day-to-day basis. And it did. Fear definitely did mess me up during certain years of my life, like a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking from personal experience, I did, do a lot of things that I didn't want to do because of fear in my life. I studied at a certain school that I never really wanted to, because I feared that if I followed my passion, that I wouldn't gain enough money, therefore I wouldn't survive. And there were also certain times where I was kind of paranoid about death, also, in a way. That I kind of like wanted to be super like I kind of did turn into one of those super junkies where they care about health a little too much. I was also there, and those types of stuff do happen because of fear, and you just have to accept that, hey, you're gonna die, so since you're gonna die, what's the point of living in fear?
If you're gonna die, might as well go all in.
Yeah.
Honestly, not a decent take, really. Like,
so in that sense, I think Ironwood is very relatable in a way, in some ways. I never didn't like blow up entire countries because of fear, but it's also because I never was given the choice to do that, I guess. And I probably won't do that. Possibly.
Probably won't, most likely.
Yeah, most likely.
But overall, like that's really what I got to say. Like an Ironwood flawed character could have been written better. Yes, it could have. But then again, like these are all just hindsights at this point.
Yeah, hindsight. And then also a lot of stuff is like time related.